first question for both of you is, there's one scene in particular near the end of the film when Roki asks Jax, how do you say mother in the language? And she says it. And then how do you say aunt? And she says it, and the distinction between it meaning small mother or other mother. And I think it easily captures a big theme in this movie. And it reminds me of specifically how in underrepresented communities, I guess this is a cliche saying of it takes a village to raise a child. But in underrepresented communities, I come from a big family, and I feel like I have cousins who feel like, sisters and brothers, and uncles and aunts who feel like, moms and dads as well. So why do you think this familial bond means so much and represents so much within this project in particular? I know it's a loaded question, but
no,
I mean, sure. that word of auntie and that being other mother is really the root and the heart of the film. That relationship that Jax and Roki have, it's just, it's about taking care of each other and about understanding that love is always going to be there. And, you can see that in so many of the relationships Roki has with, the adults around her. She's so young. She has that joy and that, bright light surrounding her, but there's this constant learning that's happening when she looks at everybody around her, specifically, Tawi, her mom, and Jax.
Yeah, and it's even though Jax is teaching her some not so great habits, she's also the one who's keeping language in the home. And just that, boiling it down to in a language that is as old as the people, that there is a word that describes how tightly knit family is. It's the same in Blackfeet. There's not a word that's like, second cousin once removed. It's like if you're in the same generation, that's your brother or sister. It's like families by design of the language and just by design of how families are, as you described with your family. The language supports that. And a huge part of the attempted eradication of Indigenous peoples hinged around stripping us of our language and our connection to language, partly because our language had space for that. Divide and conquer is an age-old tactic of colonizers, of any conquering body. And if you strip away a language, you strip away a worldview, you strip away those inherent family ties that keep a community so tightly bound that, like, your niece is your daughter. It's there's not this nuclear family. There's not this separation of, industrializing a workforce. And it's an act of, it's a radical act. It's a revolutionary act to put language on screen and to have it live in this way between these characters.
Yes, absolutely. And Lily, you're also coming off of Under the Bridge as well. And I understand, both of you. It just clicked for me. But Lily, in both these projects, you're playing a character who both characters are investigating missing women who are underrepresented in different ways. And so what was it like going from projects of sort of similarity, but not so similar, but like them also being filmed kind of around the same time and also now released around the same time? Right.
Yeah. Fancy Dance shot right before Under the Bridge, and now the opposite rollout. But yeah, I mean, it's the similar thing, but in one I'm a vigilante criminal, and in another I'm a cop. But it's both projects. The character is able to, from different perspectives, have the conversation of the systemic failures and the jurisdictional inequities that are in place. Jax reflects the reality that it is our own communities. It is women, men, it is queer folks, it is people who are organized and prop our communities up are the ones that are often tasked to do this kind of work, to do this grassroots searching for missing relatives, to do the work of going off of a tip, going and picking up a girl on a trafficking tip in a state away at 3 a.m. You know, those are Indigenous women and organizations that are doing the work that, you know, jurisdictional bodies and law enforcement should be doing, but are not. So it was important to me and very interesting to me going from one to the other, because the two characters do have this continuity of conversation. And Rena Verk's case in Canada really did change how law enforcement approaches missing persons cases. They learned a really hard lesson in the early days of Rena Verk's trial. But yeah, it's funny how the two are tied. We were getting ready to wrap on Fancy Dance when I took my first meeting with Quinn and Samir, and my first words out of my mouth were raving about this film that I was shooting in Oklahoma right now, and my co-star playing my niece. Then immediately Quinn leans in. It's like, does she kind of look like you? I'm like, yeah, she does. And it's like, how old is she? It's like, well, she's 17, but she reads as 14, 15, you know, younger. She's like, that's kind of perfect. So we sent some stills into sizzle reel from Fancy Dance, and Isabel was cast like that for Under the Bridge as young Cam. So it was nice. It made me happy because I was starting to grieve not having my niece by me every day, because Isabel kind of became like my niece as Roki is to Jax. So one thing that honestly kind of pushed me toward really wanting to pursue Under the Bridge as well was I knew I'd be in Vancouver where she lives, so I didn't have to say bye yet. I got to go film and hang out with Isabel on the weekends. So.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you both so much for chatting with me. And I cannot wait for more people to see this film. And I'm anticipating the discourse and dialogue that it will prompt. So thank you so much, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. First off, it really resonated with me so much because I'm from North Carolina, where there are a lot of Indigenous tribes, several state recognized, and of course Cherokee federally recognized. And I'm an undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill. And the time I was there, there was a case of I didn't know her personally, but an Indigenous young woman named Faith Hedgepeth who was murdered, and it was around like 2013, and it took years for that case to be solved, probably around 2017, 18-ish when it was solved. And I just remember like the community being, you know, befuddled about what happened, especially because like at UNC, like our minority underrepresented communities were very close together. And there was other similar murder of a white student that garnered so much more attention than Faith's case. So I was wondering, like, what specifically about the MMIW, you know, cause and everything surrounding it did you want to specifically highlight in this film, specifically parts about it that people may not be necessarily familiar with or know more about?
Yeah, I think one of the most like common responses that we've gotten from people who watch this film outside of Native spaces is like, I had no idea this was an issue. And so I think that is in and of itself really wild, considering that as a Native person, I can't go on social media without seeing a missing poster every day. And so that is, to me, like the fact that people don't understand or don't even know that this is an ongoing issue and an ongoing impact of an ongoing genocide that's still happening to Native peoples. Hopefully this film will bring about more conversations, and that people who are non-Native will recognize these issues more, and then perhaps like consider how they can be better citizens to their Native neighbors. And yeah, I mean, we wanted to talk about the MMIW-MMIR crisis without it being a procedural or like hitting people over the head. Like these are things that are happening on the periphery, but the real film, like the real story, is about these two Indigenous women and how their kind of like love and joy for each other allow them to navigate this really traumatic, tragic situation. And so I hope that in our application of this and the way that we told the story, I'm hopeful that people will recognize these two beautiful characters and their humanity, and perhaps that can inspire more conversations around these topics that are impacting Native people today.
Yes, I love how you mentioned the not a procedural because it's more about the family bond, and I love how in this film the scene, one of the scenes near the end in which Roki asks Jax, what does mother mean and what does aunt mean and what that means, and it reminds me of the cliche saying that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think about I have a big family and having cousins that are more like siblings and uncles and aunts that are more like parents.
Yeah.
So that captures such a big theme in this movie. So why do you think it was so important to hone in on this family aspect and why that's such a crucial part of underrepresented and minority communities to have this big that feeling?
Yeah, because I think in our communities, it's our aunties and it's our grandmas and it's our moms that are like doing this work to keep us safe. And, our uncles too. And so for me, it was just as a Native woman who's so inspired by other Native women and queer folks in my life, I just wanted to kind of write them a love letter. And Jax is an amalgamation of so many people who have guided me throughout my life, and she's trying so hard and she's doing her best and she's given it her all to keep Roki safe and to make sure that Roki's okay. And to me, that's just like an inspiring character and someone that I want to watch and someone that I want to write for.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. And I cannot wait for more people to see this film and the discussions that'll come of it. I'm super excited to see it, but thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.